The gravel crunched under my dress shoes, frozen solid, January cold that makes your teeth ache. Row 12. That's where I found my name card at my sister-in-law's wedding, behind a decorative stone pillar thick enough to hide a man. Behind me, a diesel generator hummed like it was laughing. I could smell champagne mixing with heating fuel, watch my breath hang in the air under that white tent. Linda was up front with the wedding party, all smiles, like I wasn't even there. The metal chair bit through my wool suit. I sat down, pulled out my phone to look busy. That's when the woman in the wheelchair rolled up. Everyone else was standing for the processional. She sat right next to me, took my hand in hers. Papery skin, but her grip was iron. "Just follow my lead," she said. "I know something you need to hear." During the first hymn, she leaned close. "Your wife forged your mother's will. This estate should be half yours. I have proof." That morning, I'd gotten dressed in my shop office because Linda said she needed the house to herself. 40 years of marriage. And suddenly, I'm in the way on a Saturday morning. The concrete floor was cold even through my boots. I could hear the space heater clicking on and off, smell the engine oil that never quite leaves a place, no matter how many times you mop. My good suit hung on a hook by the filing cabinet, charcoal gray, same one I wore to my mother's funeral 3 years back. I ran my hand over the fabric. Everything was ready. Black shoes polished. Tie Clara had picked out last Christmas, back when she still pretended to care what I wore. I mean Linda. Linda had picked it out. Sometimes I still slip. The coffee pot percolated in the corner, that burnt smell from the bottom of the carafe I should have washed better. I was waiting for her to pick me up, like she'd said. We'd drive together to her sister's place, the Carmichael estate, though that's what Margaret called it now. Used to be the old Hendricks farm before my mother passed. 200 acres of good Iowa soil my grandfather cleared by hand. My phone buzzed. A text from Linda. "Going early to help Naomi. You can drive yourself." I read it twice. Looked at the coffee pot, the suit, the wedding invitation still pinned to my bulletin board. "Mr. and Mrs. Dale Hendricks." That's what it said. Both our names. I texted back. "Want me to pick you up?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. I'm already there. "See you at 2. I stood there in my undershirt and dress pants, phone in my hand, listening to the heater click. Outside, the wind rattled the bay doors. The 1952 John Deere I'd been restoring sat in the middle bay, engine blocks still scattered across my workbench. My father's tractor, seized up for 30 years, and I'd finally started bringing it back to life. Some things you can fix if you're patient enough. I put on my shirt, buttoned it slow, tied my tie in the mirror by the parts calendar, the one still showing December because I kept forgetting to flip it. January 15th, middle of the coldest month we'd had in years. The drive out to the estate took 20 minutes. County roads all salt white and frozen. I passed Vernon's old place, dark and empty since he moved to North Dakota for the oil work. Past Ruby's Diner, where the breakfast crowd was clearing out, trucks with their exhaust smoking in the cold. I should have stopped for better coffee, but I was already running late. The Carmichael estate, Christ, even thinking that name made my jaw tight, sat at the end of a gravel drive lined with oak trees my grandfather planted. The main house was all white columns and black shutters, the kind of place that looked like money even when it was just a working farm. Margaret had it repainted last summer. Hired a wedding coordinator, set up a big white tent on the south lawn where my mother used to keep her vegetable garden. Cars lined the drive. I parked near the back, behind a row of Mercedes and Lexuses that made my Ford look like it wandered in from the wrong decade. The coat check was in the barn, the old dairy barn converted into what Margaret called an event space. Heaters blasting diesel fumes, white linens everywhere, champagne glasses on tables that used to hold milking equipment. A young woman in a black vest took my coat. She had a tablet, all official. "Name? Dale Hendricks." She scrolled, frowned, scrolled some more. "Are you with the vendors?" "I'm the groom's—" I stopped. "The bride's brother-in-law, Linda's husband." Her face did something I couldn't quite read. "Oh, right. Yes. Here you are." She handed me a number on a little metal disc. "Your seat assignment's at the entrance." I took the disc. It was cold in my palm. The ceremony was outside, despite the weather. They'd set up 100 white chairs in perfect rows, each one with a fitted cover that probably cost more than I charged for a full engine rebuild. I found the place card table easy enough. Alphabetical, names in calligraphy that looked like it took someone a week to write. Hendricks, Dale, row 12, I counted. Front row, row 2, 3. Row 12 was at the back, behind a decorative pillar they'd hauled in from somewhere, probably rented, stone, waist-high, thick enough that you couldn't see past it if you were sitting down. Next to my chair, an industrial fan hummed away, trying to keep the cold from settling too deep. I sat down, pulled out my phone, pretended to check emails I'd already read. That's when she rolled up beside me and took my hand. Her name was Evelyn Thatcher. She told me that right away, like we had business to discuss, and not much time. She wore a navy dress that looked warm, and her wheelchair had mud on the wheels like she'd come across the fields instead of up the drive. The organ started, everyone stood. Evelyn stayed seated, and so did I, because what was the point of standing when I couldn't see anything anyway? The pillar blocked everything except the backs of heads in row 11. I could hear the officiant's voice over the speakers, hear the collective sigh when Naomi must have started down the aisle, hear the camera shutters clicking like insects. Evelyn leaned close. She smelled like old paper and peppermint, the kind church ladies keep in their purses. "You're Linda's husband." "That's right. I was the county clerk for 40 years, retired in 2020. She kept her voice low, just under the music. "I processed your mother's estate documents in 2018. Original deed, original will, everything proper." I looked at her. She had sharp eyes, the kind that don't miss much. "In 2019, Linda filed an amended deed. Your mother had been dead 3 months by then." The wind caught the tent sides, made them snap like flags. My hands were cold even in my lap. "Your mother's signature was notarized 3 weeks after she died," Evelyn said. "I processed both documents. Someone committed fraud, and looking at this wedding, at this estate, I'd say they got away with it." The ceremony continued. I heard the vows starting, heard Preston's voice crack on the word cherish. People were crying, the happy kind, tissues dabbing at mascara. Evelyn handed me something, a business card with a phone number written on the back in shaky handwriting. "Call me Monday," she said. I kept copies of everything. The reception was in the barn. By the time I made it inside, my feet were numb, and my mind was somewhere between disbelief and rage. The place was packed. Cocktail hour in full swing, servers with trays of food I couldn't identify, a bar at the far end doing serious business. I found a corner near the loading dock door where the cold air leaked in and you could hear the generator running outside. I pulled out my phone, called Vernon. He answered on the third ring, that roughneck wind behind his voice. "Dale? Were you invited to Mom's funeral?" Silence. Then, "Linda told me you didn't want me there. Said you were angry about the money I borrowed. Said it'd be better if I stayed away." I closed my eyes. "I never said that. I looked for you, thought you didn't care enough to show." Jesus, Dale. My phone buzzed. A text from Evelyn. "Can you step outside? Loading dock." She was there when I opened the door, wheelchair parked by a stack of empty champagne crates. She had her phone out, screen bright in the dusk. "Look at this." She turned it toward me. A photograph of a document. My mother's deed, dated April 2018. Her signature clear as day, notarized by someone named Patricia Voss. "That's the original. I filed it myself." She swiped. Another document. Same deed, different date. September 2019. My mother's signature again, but the notary was different. The property distribution had changed from Dale Hendricks and Linda Carmichael Hendricks, joint tenancy, to Linda Carmichael Hendricks, sole owner. "Your mother died June 12th, 2019, Evelyn said. This was filed September 4th, 3 months later." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I spent 40 years making sure documents were honest, because your mother was a decent woman who worked herself to the bone for that farm, and because there's a statute of limitations on fraud." The wind picked up. I could smell diesel fuel and dead grass. "What does that mean?" "It means you have 6 years from the date of the fraud to file a claim. 6 years to prove it in court and get it back." She looked at me hard. "That deed was filed September 4th, 2019. Today is January 15th, 25. I did the math. Felt something cold that wasn't the weather. "May 15th, I said. Vous avez 4 months to prove it. After that, the law says they win." She put her phone away. "Your wife doesn't know I kept copies. Nobody does. I made them before I retired because something felt wrong." I looked back through the barn door. Linda was at the head table, laughing with Margaret, champagne glass in her hand. The DJ was setting up. Someone was giving a toast. "She knew," I said. "She's always known." Evelyn nodded. "Get yourself a lawyer, Dale. Time's running out." Monday morning, I was at the county courthouse when it opened. February 3rd, 10 degrees out, the kind of cold that makes the inside of your nose freeze. The courthouse was one of those old limestone buildings from the 30s, Radiators clanking and hissing like they were angry about still working. Evelyn met me in the lobby. She had a canvas bag on her lap, thick with folders. "They keep the old records in the basement," she said. "Follow me." The elevator groaned. I could smell floor wax and old paper, that musty scent of documents nobody's looked at in years. The basement was a maze of metal shelves, boxes labeled by year, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. It was warmer down here, almost stuffy. Evelyn navigated like she'd walked these rows 1,000 times. "I worked here from 1980 to 2020, she said. 40 years of every deed, every will, every property transfer in this county. When computers came in, they said we could throw out the paper. I said no." She stopped at a shelf marked 2018 to 2019. "I kept carbon copies of everything I personally processed. Called it my insurance." She pulled down a box, set it on a rolling cart. Inside were folders, dozens of them, each one with a handwritten label. Hendricks, Dorothy May, Estate Settlement 2018. She pulled the folder. "This is what I filed when your mother passed. Original will, dated 2015. Original deed transfer, signed April 2018, 6 weeks before she died." She knew she was sick, wanted everything in order. I took the folder. My mother's signature was there, shaky but clear. The deed listed me and Linda as joint owners, 50-50. "Now look at this." Evelyn pulled another folder. "Amended deed, filed September 2019, 3 months after she died." The signature looked right. That was the worst part. It looked exactly like my mother's hand, even the way she crossed her T's, but the date was impossible. "How do you prove it's forged?" "The notary stamp," she pointed. "This one says Patricia Voss. I called her last week. She's been retired since 2017, moved to Arizona, never notarized anything after that." So Linda just made it up. Or paid someone to forge the stamp. Either way, it's fraud. Evelyn leaned back in her wheelchair. "But here's what you need to understand. Proving fraud is hard. You need evidence, you need witnesses, and you need time. 4 months isn't much." "What else should I look for?" She pulled out a notepad, wrote something down. "Check every insurance policy filed in your mother's name between 2018 and 2020. I saw something when I was organizing files last month. A claim for farm equipment filed by Linda in 2020. Big payout. Something didn't sit right about it, but I was already retired, not my business anymore." She handed me the note. "Now it's your business." I folded the paper, put it in my wallet. "Why are you helping me?" "My husband got cheated by his business partner 20 years ago. We didn't have proof, couldn't do anything about it. Watched that man retire rich while we scraped by." She closed the folders. I told myself if I ever saw it happening again, I wouldn't stay quiet. Vernon showed up at my shop at 6 in the morning, 3 days later. I heard his truck before I saw it, that diesel rattle he never bothered to fix. I was already awake, hadn't slept much since the wedding, just lay on the cot in my office, staring at the ceiling. He came in without knocking, 2 cups of coffee from Ruby's in his hands, set one down on my workbench, didn't say anything, just sat on the stool by the vise and drank his coffee while the space heater worked overtime. Vernon looked older than I remembered. 64 now, weathered from a decade working North Dakota oil fields. His hands were scarred up, knuckles thick. We hadn't talked in 10 years. Linda had told me he borrowed $5,000 and never paid it back. Told me he said some things about her at Mom's funeral. Told me it was better if we kept distance. All lies. I knew now. "I'm sorry," I finally said. "She's good at it." Vernon took another sip. "Turning people against each other. Mom warned me once, said Linda had a way of making herself the victim. I should have called you. Should have known better." "Yeah, well," he set down his coffee. "I'm here now." I showed him the documents Evelyn had copied. Showed him the insurance note. He read through everything twice, jaw working like he was chewing something tough. "You got a lawyer?" "Can't afford much. Used most of my savings when Linda moved out. She cleaned out the joint account before I knew what was happening." "How much you need?" "Vernon, how much?" I did the math in my head. Retainer, filing fees, expert witnesses if it came to that. 5,000, maybe more. He nodded. Looked at the tractor taking up my middle bay, that 1952 Deere I'd been piecing back together. "That gonna run?" "Eventually. Dad would have liked seeing you work on it." He stood, walked over to his truck through the bay door I'd left cracked. When he came back, he was carrying a metal box. Army green, about the size of a toolbox, with a padlock I recognized. Mom gave me this 2 weeks before she died, said if anything happened, I should give it to you. He said it on the workbench. She said, if anything happens with the property, if Dale seems confused about what's his, give him this box. Don't tell him until he needs it. My hands were shaking when I took the key he offered. Inside was a folder, carbon copies, just like Evelyn's, my mother's real will, dated 2015, notarized proper, witnessed by Pastor Mike and Ruby Kowalski. Everything split 50-50 between me and Linda, no amendments, no changes, and underneath a letter in my mother's handwriting. Dale, if you're reading this, something went wrong. Watch your back. Some people love money more than people. Trust Vernon. He's got your blood. Mom. I read it twice. Vernon was quiet, just standing there with his coffee. She knew, I said. She suspected. Didn't want to believe it, but she suspected. Vernon put his hand on my shoulder. We're brothers, Dale. That matters more than her lies. Whatever you need, I'm here. I waited 2 weeks before confronting her, gathered copies of everything. Evelyn's documents, Vernon's box, the insurance note. Got my ducks in a row, as my father used to say. February 20th, I drove to the house we'd shared for 40 years. My key still worked. Linda was in the kitchen, that big open space she'd remodeled 5 years back with granite counters and stainless steel appliances we couldn't afford. She was on her phone, laughing about something, glass of white wine already poured even though it wasn't yet noon. When she saw me, the laugh died. Dale, what are you doing here? I set the folder on the counter. The granite was cold under my hand. I could smell her perfume, that expensive stuff that came in the little gold bottle. Used to love that smell. I found Mom's real will. She set down her phone, took a sip of wine. I don't know what you're talking about. Carbon copy. Vernon had it. Mom gave it to him before she died, told him to keep it safe. I opened the folder, spread the documents out. This is the real one, dated 2015, 50-50 split, and this is the one you filed in 2019, 3 months after she died, after you forged her signature. Linda looked at the papers. Something crossed her face. Not shame, not guilt, calculation. You can't prove that. The notary retired in 2017. Never notarized anything after that. Patricia Voss, called her myself. She's willing to testify. Linda picked up her wine glass, took another drink, set it down carefully. Okay, let's say you're right. Let's say I adjusted the paperwork. What are you going to do about it? The way she said it, casual, almost amused, made my chest tight. I'm taking you to court. With what money? She smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. I moved our joint account 3 weeks ago, opened my own. You've got what? Maybe $10,000 in savings? A lawyer's going to cost you 5 times that. Maybe more. I'll find a way. You'll lose. She leaned against the counter, completely at ease. You know what the statute of limitations is on fraud, Dale? 6 years. That deed was filed September 2019. You've got until May 15th to prove it. 4 months. Good luck finding a lawyer who'll take your case with that timeline. Good luck affording one. My hands were fists at my sides. You stole from me, from my mother. I reclaimed what should have been Carmichael property in the first place. Your mother was a Carmichael cousin. That farm belonged to our family before your grandfather married into it. I just corrected a mistake. A mistake. You really think you were good enough for me, Dale? Really? She picked up her phone, checked something. I married you because I thought you'd amount to something. But 40 years later, you're still running a garage in the same town you grew up in, still fixing tractors for farmers who can barely pay you. My sisters married lawyers, doctors. I married a mechanic. I provided for you for 40 years. You provided mediocrity. She finished her wine. And now you're going to sue me with money you don't have and time you don't have. And when May 15th comes around, the law's going to protect me. You've already lost, Dale. You just don't know it yet. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger, someone I'd never known at all. I'm getting a lawyer, I said. Good luck, she smiled. Oh, and Dale, I already told Margaret and everyone at the country club about your baseless accusations, about how you're harassing me, making up stories about fraud because you're bitter about the divorce. People believe me. They always have. I left the folder on her counter and walked out. Ruby's Diner was dead quiet when I walked in 2 days later. Tuesday morning, the place should have been packed with the breakfast crowd, farmers, truckers, mechanics from the dealership down the road. Instead, there were maybe 5 people total, all of them nursing coffee and not meeting my eyes. Ruby was behind the counter, wiping down the same spot over and over. When she saw me, something like relief crossed her face. Coffee? Please. She poured, and the smell was the only good thing about that morning. Dark roast, the kind that burns your tongue if you drink it too fast. I sat at the counter, away from the occupied booths. The door chimed. A group of women came in, laughing about something. I recognized them. Linda's book club friends, all of them married to the country club set. They took a booth near the back, and their laughter got louder. Not quite loud enough to make out words, but loud enough that I knew they were talking about me. Ruby set down my cup hard. Don't listen to them. What are they saying? Nothing worth repeating. She leaned in close. Town's splitting, honey. The ones with money versus the ones with backbone. Linda's people are all over social media, talking about how you're having some kind of breakdown, how you're harassing her for money. I'm not. I know, but they're convincing. She glanced at the booth. Already lost 3 of my regulars this week. They don't want to be seen supporting you. Bad for business, they said. One of the women's voices rose. Can you imagine? Accusing your own wife of fraud after everything Linda did for him. Ruby's jaw tightened. She walked over to their booth. Ladies, you want to gossip? Do it somewhere else. This is a restaurant, not a courthouse. The women looked offended. The one in the front, Susan something, married to Linda's lawyer, stood up. We'll take our business elsewhere, Ruby. Clearly you're taking sides. They walked out. 4 checks left unpaid on the table. Ruby came back, started clearing the booth. I pulled out my wallet. How many customers have you lost because of me? Doesn't matter. Ruby, doesn't matter, she said again, looking at me hard. Most folks worth knowing are on your side. The rest can eat somewhere else. My phone buzzed. A text from the hardware store. Dale, sorry, but we're going to have to hold on your account until this situation gets resolved. Nothing personal. Then another from John Deere dealership. Hey man, corporate says we can't work with vendors involved in legal disputes. Let me know when it's settled. I set the phone down, looked at my coffee. Ruby put her hand over mine. Don't you dare give up. But sitting there, in that empty diner, watching the few remaining customers avoid looking at me, I wasn't sure what giving up would even look like anymore. March 15th, I signed the separation papers in a lawyer's office that smelled like old books and burnt coffee. The lawyer was young, maybe 35, fresh enough that he still believed in doing the right thing even when it didn't pay well. His name was Marcus Chen, and he'd taken my case for half his normal rate after Evelyn called in a favor. Linda sat across the table in a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than the retainer I'd scraped together. Her lawyer was older, gray-haired, the kind that charged by the minute and made sure you knew it. The papers were simple: legal separation, division of assets, pending fraud investigation, temporary living arrangements. I'd move out. She'd keep the house until the court decided who actually owned what. Marcus slid the papers across. You sure about this, Dale? I picked up the pen. My hand was steady. Yeah. Linda signed without looking at me. When it was done, her lawyer gathered the papers, tapped them into a neat stack. Linda stood, smoothed her skirt. I already canceled our joint property insurance, she said. Too casual. Too quick. On the house and the shop, you'll need to get your own policy. Something about the way she said it made my skin prickle. Marcus caught it too, made a note on his legal pad. When did you cancel it? Last month. Doesn't matter now. She picked up her purse. We done here? That afternoon, I loaded my truck with everything that mattered. My father's toolbox, the photo of my mother in the vegetable garden, my clothes, my boots, the electric razor that still worked after 20 years, left the furniture, the wedding china, the flat-screen TV Linda had insisted we needed. The shop apartment wasn't much. 1 room above the office, bathroom with a shower that barely fit a full-grown man, kitchenette with a hot plate and a mini fridge. I'd used it for naps during long jobs, never thought I'd actually live here. The mattress was thin, the window looked out at the parking lot, but it was mine, paid for with money I'd earned fixing things. I sat on the edge of the bed, the space heater ticked. Outside, rain was starting, that cold March rain that's half ice drumming on the metal roof. I could hear water dripping somewhere, probably the gutter I kept meaning to fix. My phone rang. Vernon. You moved out? Yeah. Good. Meet me at the shop tomorrow morning. Bringing some people. We need to talk. They showed up at 6, before the sun was properly up. Vernon in his diesel truck, Evelyn in a van with a wheelchair lift, driven by her daughter, and Pastor Mike Hollings, who'd known my mother since she started attending Millfield Methodist back in the 80s. We gathered in the office, coffee brewing on the hot plate, the space heater working overtime. Rain pattered against the windows. March 18th, and winter was finally starting to loosen its grip. Mud season coming. 8 weeks, Marcus had said on the phone last night. You've got 8 weeks until May 15th. After that, statute expires, and this becomes a lot harder. Evelyn spread documents across my desk. Pastor Mike stood by the window, holding his coffee with both hands. Linda called me last week, Mike said. Asked me to write a character reference for her. Said you were making false accusations that she needed the church's support. What did you tell her? I told her I'd pray about it. He took a sip. Then I went through the church records, insurance policies specifically. Linda told the board 2 years ago that our farm equipment, the tractor, the mower, the trailer we use for mission trips, was covered under your family's commercial policy, said it saved the church money. Vernon looked up from the documents. Was it? No. I called every insurance company we work with. None of them have any record of equipment coverage through Dale or his mother's policies. Mike set down his coffee. She lied to the church board, cost us 2 years of coverage we thought we had. Why would she do that? I asked. Evelyn pulled out another folder. Because she was planning something bigger. If she claimed equipment was covered under your policies, then later claimed it was destroyed. Insurance fraud, Vernon said. That's what I think. Evelyn tapped the folder. And if she did it to the church, she probably did it to your mother's estate too. Vernon stood, walked to his truck through the bay door. Rain soaked his shoulders in the 30 seconds he was outside. He came back with the metal box, the one my mother had given him, set it on the desk, water dripping onto the papers. You looked at everything in here? The will, I said. Mom's letter. Look again. He opened it. Underneath the will and the letter was another envelope, sealed. My name on the front in my mother's handwriting. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a list handwritten, dated 3 weeks before she died. Property inventory, farm equipment, 1940 combine, serial, at AH4782, 1947 hay baler, serial, BB, 1952 John Deere tractor, serial, J847, grandfather's tools, complete set original case. At the bottom, she'd written, insurance policy number 45-88291. Current value, $80,000. Do not sell. Family legacy. Evelyn leaned forward. What's the policy number? I read it to her. She pulled out her phone, started searching through something. Her face changed. Dale, that policy had a claim filed in 2020. Total loss, fire damage, paid out $80,000. She looked up. Filed by Linda Hendricks. The rain hammered harder on the roof. The equipment, Vernon said quietly. Where is it now? The first week of April, I learned what it's like to be a ghost in your own town. I'd walk into the hardware store and conversations would stop. People suddenly remembered they had somewhere else to be. Tom Wheeler, who I'd fixed 3 combines for over the years, crossed the street when he saw me coming. At the post office, Betty Marston wouldn't look at me while she handed over my mail, just slid it across the counter like I might be contagious. How you holding up, Dale? That was old George Patterson, at least. 86 years old, fought in Korea, didn't care what anybody thought. Been better. Town's acting like fools. Always do when there's Carmichael money involved. He patted my shoulder. Keep your head up. But George was the exception. Most folks had made their choice, and it wasn't me. The real estate office, Carmichael Family Realty, Linda's workplace, had a wall of family photos in the front window, Linda smiling with clients, Margaret at ribbon cuttings, the whole Carmichael clan at various charity events. There used to be one of Linda and me at our wedding, small but there. I noticed it was gone when I drove past on April 2nd. The church was worse. I showed up Sunday morning, same pew I'd sat in for 40 years. People filed past like I wasn't there. The Carmichael family took up 3 rows near the front. Margaret, Linda, their cousins, all dressed like they were posing for a magazine. During the greeting time, when everyone shakes hands, the row in front of me stayed turned forward. Pastor Mike saw it. I could tell by the way his jaw tightened during his sermon. He preached about truth and bearing false witness, but it sailed right over most heads. After the service, Susan Carter, Linda's book club friend, made sure to say, loud enough for everyone to hear, I just think it's sad when someone can't accept that a marriage is over. All these accusations. It's desperate. I walked out before communion. Vernon met me in the parking lot. Screw 'em. You don't need their approval. I need their business. Shop's been dead for 2 weeks. Then we'll figure something else out. But figuring something else out wasn't that simple. My commercial accounts, the dealership, the co-op, 3 farms that contracted regular maintenance, all of them put me on hold pending resolution of legal matters. Polite corporate speak for, the Carmichaels have more money than you. Marcus filed motions, requested discovery, got stonewalled at every turn by Linda's lawyer who knew how to drag things out, burned through my limited funds with procedure and paperwork. Every filing cost money I didn't have. Every delay brought us closer to May 15th. April 5th, 6 weeks left. My phone rang at 2 in the afternoon. Ruby, get to the diner, now. Ruby, I don't think, now, Dale. Something you need to see. The diner was half empty when I got there. Mid-afternoon lull, just a few regulars nursing coffee. Ruby was behind the counter, and sitting at the corner booth was a man I didn't recognize. 50-something, red-faced, tie loosened, glass of water in front of him, like he'd asked for something stronger but settled. Ruby jerked her head toward him. That's Phil Davidson. Used to be an insurance adjuster, retired now. I slid into the booth across from him. Up close, he smelled like whiskey and regret. His hands shook slightly when he picked up his water glass. You're Dale Hendricks. That's right. I processed a claim for your family in 2020. Oh, farm equipment. Total loss, fire damage. $80,000. He set down the glass, looked at his hands. I rubber-stamped it because Linda Carmichael asked me to. We went to high school together. Her family, they've been good to this town. Good to me. My heart was pounding. What are you saying? I'm saying I didn't do my job. I trusted her when she said the equipment was destroyed. Didn't verify, didn't investigate. Just signed off and cut the check. He finally looked at me. I drove past the Carmichael estate last week. Margaret was having some kind of garden party. I saw the south barn door open. And I saw a 1940s combine sitting inside. Same model from the claim photos. Took me a minute to remember where I'd seen it before. He pulled out his phone, showed me a photo. Distant, taken from the road, but clear enough. Old green paint, the distinctive rounded hood of a 40s McCormick Deering. I checked my old files this morning. Serial number AH4782. That's the combine Linda claimed was destroyed in a barn fire. The diner felt too small suddenly. Too bright. Ruby was leaning against the counter, arms crossed, watching. Why are you telling me this? Because I can't sleep anymore. His voice cracked. Because I helped someone commit insurance fraud, and I've been living with it for 5 years. Because that equipment was your mother's, and I helped steal it from you. Evelyn rolled through the door, her daughter pushing the wheelchair. She must have been listening from outside because she came straight to our booth. Phil, you willing to testify? He looked at her, at me, at his shaking hands. If it means making this right, yeah, I'll testify. Evelyn pulled out a folder, she always had folders, and set it on the table. I pulled the original claim this morning after Ruby called. Fire reported at the old farmhouse on the disputed property, October 2020. Linda filed as property owner, claimed total loss of equipment stored in the attached barn. Was there a fire? I asked. According to the county, no. No fire department report, no emergency calls, no investigation. She looked at Phil. You verified this how? I didn't. Linda sent photos of a burned structure, said it was too dangerous to inspect in person. I took her word for it. The photos, Evelyn said. You still have them? Phil scrolled through his phone, pulled up 3 images. A burned building, collapsed roof, black timbers. Could have been anywhere. Could have been from the internet for all anyone knew. That's not the barn on the Carmichael property, Vernon said. He'd come in without me noticing, stood behind me now. I helped Dad repair that barn in 1992. Original structure from 1910, stone foundation, timber frame. What's in that photo is stick-built, modern, wrong barn entirely. So she faked the fire, I said, and collected $80,000 for equipment she never lost. Evelyn closed the folder. That's not civil fraud anymore. That's criminal. Wire fraud, insurance fraud, grand theft, federal charges if they want to push it. Ruby set down a cup of coffee in front of Phil. He wrapped his hands around it like it was keeping him alive. There's more, he said quietly. The equipment, it's not just the combine. I saw the tractor too, the one from the claim, 1952 John Deere. He looked at me. Serial number JD8847. Your father's tractor, right? I nodded, couldn't speak. It's in that barn. They're storing it all there. Probably figured they'd sell it piece by piece after enough time passed. After everyone forgot about the claim, he finished his water. I can show you. I can get you in. Margaret's having another party this weekend. Place will be crowded. South Barn's usually unlocked during events. Vernon leaned forward. You'll testify to all this? In court? I'll do whatever you need. I should have done my job right the first time. Phil stood up, left a 20 on the table, even though he hadn't ordered food. I'm sorry, Mr. Hendricks. I'm real sorry. He walked out. The door chimed behind him. Ruby poured me coffee without asking. The diner was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the old clock above the register. We've got her, Vernon said. Evelyn was already on her phone, calling Marcus. This changes everything. Insurance fraud is criminal. Statute of limitations doesn't apply the same way. We can file charges, get a warrant for the barn, seize the equipment as evidence. I sat there holding coffee I didn't remember picking up. Outside, April rain was starting again. That gray drizzle that meant spring was fighting winter and neither one was winning yet. 6 weeks, I said. We don't need 6 weeks anymore. Evelyn put down her phone. We've got the smoking gun. The night of April 8th, I couldn't sleep. Lay on that thin mattress, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain on the metal roof. It was past midnight when I gave up, went downstairs to the shop floor. The space was dark except for the security light by the bay doors, casting long shadows across the concrete. I walked to the middle bay, where the 1952 Deere sat, my father's tractor. I'd gotten the engine freed up, replaced the belts, cleaned the carburetor. It was close now. Maybe another week of work and it had run. The serial number was stamped on the engine block, JD8847. Same number Phil had seen on the insurance claim. Same tractor Linda had declared destroyed, collected money for, then hidden in her sister's barn like stolen goods. I ran my hand over the cold metal. Dad had bought this tractor in 1952 with money from his first harvest. Taught me to drive it when I was 8 years old, sitting on his lap, his hands over mine on the wheel. When he died, it was the one thing I wanted. Not the house, not the land, just this tractor. And Linda had sold it off on paper, pocketed the cash. The bay door rattled. Vernon's truck pulled in, headlights cutting through the rain. He came in shaking water off his jacket, carrying a bottle of whiskey. Couldn't sleep either. No. He poured 2 glasses, shop rags for coasters, whiskey neat because we weren't fancy. We sat on overturned buckets by the tractor, not talking for a while. The rain was steady now, not hard, just persistent. I could smell the wet asphalt outside mixing with engine oil and old coffee. You remember Beth? Vernon asked finally. His wife. Ex-wife now. They'd married young, divorced before their 30th anniversary. Yeah. I loved her, really loved her. Even after I found out she was sleeping with my supervisor on the rig. Even after she cleaned out our bank account and moved to Tulsa with him. He took a drink. Took me 5 years to admit the marriage was dead. Kept thinking if I just tried harder, if I just forgave more, she'd come back to who I thought she was. What made you finally let go? My mama sat me down, said, Vernon, you're mourning someone who never existed. The woman you loved was a story you told yourself. The real Beth? She chose money over you a long time ago? You just didn't want to see it. He looked at me. You're doing the same thing with Linda. I took a drink. The whiskey burned. 40 years, Vernon. How do you throw away 40 years? You're not throwing it away. She already did that when she forged Mom's will, when she stole your inheritance, when she filed false insurance claims. He set down his glass. You think you're the one destroying your marriage by taking her to court. But Dale, the marriage died the moment she chose that estate over you. You're just finally admitting it. The rain got harder. I could hear it drumming on the hood of his truck outside. If I do this, if we go through with testifying, with the criminal charges, she'll go to jail. Probably. Her family will never forgive me. Half this town already hates me. The half that matters doesn't. I'll be alone. 67 years old, divorced, sleeping above a garage. Vernon was quiet for a minute. Then, you remember what Dad used to say about fixing things? Which thing? Some brakes you can weld. Some brakes mean you got to replace the whole part. He gestured at the tractor. This engine seized because someone didn't maintain it. Could you have forced it? Maybe. But you'd have cracked the block, ruined the whole thing. Better to take it apart piece by piece, see what's salvageable, replace what's not. That's about engines. It's about everything. He stood up. Your marriage is seized up, Dale. Has been for years. You've been trying to force it, but all you're doing is cracking yourself apart. Sometimes you gotta admit the damage is too deep. Start over with parts that actually work. I looked at the tractor, at the whiskey, at my brother standing there in his oil-stained jacket, rain in his hair. If I let this go, I said slowly, can I live with myself? Can you? I thought about my mother scraping together that farm acre by acre. Thought about my father teaching me to fix things with these same hands. Thought about 40 years of trust given to someone who'd been planning to steal from me all along. No, I said. I can't. Vernon nodded, poured us both another drink. Then let's finish this. The planning session happened April 12th at dawn. Marcus drove down from Des Moines with his legal assistant. Evelyn brought more files. She always had more files. Pastor Mike showed up with a banker's box full of church records. Vernon had coffee and donuts from Ruby's. We spread everything across my workbench like we were planning a military operation. Margaret's hosting a spring fundraiser on April 19th, Evelyn said. Garden party for the hospital. Place will be full of people, caterers coming and going. Phil says the south barn stays unlocked during events. They use it for overflow parking. So we photograph the equipment, Marcus said, making notes. Get serial numbers, match them to the insurance claim. Then we file an emergency motion for an injunction stopping any sale or transfer of property pending criminal investigation. What about the church records? I asked. Pastor Mike opened the box. Inside were ledgers going back 5 years, insurance policies, board meeting minutes. Linda told our board in 2020 that our farm equipment was covered under your mother's commercial policy, said it would save the church money, and we trusted her. He pulled out a spiral notebook. But I called every insurance company we have relationships with. Nobody has any record of equipment coverage through the Hendricks family. Not your mother's policy, not yours. So she lied to the church board. To establish a pattern, Marcus said. If she told the church your family's policy covered equipment, then later claimed equipment was destroyed and filed for insurance money, it shows premeditation. It wasn't one mistake. It was a system. Vernon was looking at photos on Phil's phone. The combine, the baler, the tractor, all sitting in Margaret's barn behind garden party decorations and folded tables. They're not even hiding it, just figured nobody would care enough to look. Or that by the time anyone did, the statute would have run out. Evelyn pulled out a calendar, red circles around key dates. We're filing the motion today. April 12th, judge will set a hearing date. Fastest we can get on the docket is probably late April, early May. May 15th is the deadline. I know, that's why we're pushing for May 12th, 3 days before the statute expires. It's risky. If the judge delays even 1 day, we could lose everything. Marcus looked up from his notes. You understand what happens if we win? Criminal investigation opens. Linda could face federal charges, wire fraud, insurance fraud, document forgery. We're talking 3 to 5 years minimum if she's convicted. The shop was quiet except for the space heater ticking. And if we lose? I asked. Statute expires. The fraud becomes permanent. You lose half the estate. She keeps the insurance money, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. Marcus closed his notepad. This is all in, Dale. No middle ground. I looked at the faces around my workbench. Vernon, who'd driven 8 hours to help his brother. Evelyn, who'd spent her retirement organizing evidence against a woman she barely knew. Pastor Mike, risking his relationship with half his congregation. Ruby, who'd lost business defending me. Marcus, working for half his fee because he believed in the case. File the motion, I said. Marcus made a call. Started talking legal language I didn't fully understand. Evelyn wheeled over to me. You're doing the right thing. Doesn't feel right. Feels like I'm blowing up what's left of my life. No, she said firmly. You're building something new, something honest. That's worth more than a comfortable lie. Marcus hung up. Motion filed. Judge is reviewing it now. Should have a hearing date by end of day. We waited, drank coffee. Vernon started working on the tractor. Timing belt needed replacing, gave him something to do with his hands. Pastor Mike made phone calls, lining up people willing to testify about Linda's church insurance claims. My phone rang at 4 in the afternoon. Marcus. We got a date. May 12th, 10 a.m., Judge Henrietta Morrison presiding. May 12th, that's 3 days before. I know, it's the best we could do. She's fast-tracking it because of the statute issue, but that's as fast as the court can move. He paused. Dale, Linda's lawyer just got served with the motion. She knows about the criminal fraud allegations, about Phil's testimony, about the equipment in the barn. What'll she do? If she's smart, nothing. If she panics, she might try to move the evidence, destroy it, sell it fast. I filed for an immediate asset freeze, but that takes time to enforce. I looked out the bay door. Rain had stopped. The sky was that gray-white color of late April, when winter's finally losing and spring's almost here. What do we do now? We wait, and we hope she doesn't do anything stupid before the 12th. I saw her get the news. I was at Ruby's Diner that evening, Wednesday night meatloaf special, one of the few places I could still eat without feeling like a pariah, when Linda's Mercedes pulled up outside her real estate office across the street. Through the window, I watched her unlock the door, turn on the lights. Her phone must have rung because she pulled it out, answered. Even from across the street, I could see her face change. Saw her sit down hard in her desk chair. Saw her put her head in her hands. Ruby saw it too. First time she's looked scared. Yeah. You feel bad for her? I thought about it. 40 years of marriage. 40 years of believing I knew someone. No, I said. I feel bad for me for the time I wasted loving someone who never really loved me back. Ruby patted my hand. 3 more weeks, honey. Then it's over. 3 weeks until May 12th. 3 weeks until I either got my life back or lost everything for good. I finished my meatloaf and went home to the shop. May 12th dawned clear and warm. First real spring morning we'd had. The kind where you could smell the earth waking up. Birds were back, singing in the trees around the shop. I was up before dawn, couldn't sleep anyway. The tractor was ready. Vernon and I had finished it 2 days earlier, engine purring smooth as the day it rolled off the line in 1952. We'd cleaned it, polished the old green paint, replaced the seat. It ran like my father had just parked it yesterday. Vernon came by at 7 with coffee and clean shirts. You really doing this? Yeah, I am. Dad would have loved it. We loaded the truck bed with the documents. Everything organized in folders, labeled, indexed like Evelyn had taught us. Then I climbed up on that tractor, turned the key, and listened to the engine fire up. The sound was beautiful, steady, honest. I drove it the 4 miles into town, Vernon following in his truck with the papers. The sun was warm on my face. I could smell apple blossoms from the orchard on County Road 12, fresh-cut grass from lawns. People were finally mowing after the long winter. Spring. Really here. The courthouse sat in the middle of Millfield's town square, limestone and dignity, American flags snapping in the breeze. I parked that tractor right in front, on the grass under the oak trees, let everyone see it, let them know what this was about. People stared, cars slowed. By the time I climbed down, there was already a small crowd. Some I knew, Ruby closing her diner early to be here, George Patterson with his walker, a dozen farmers in their good jeans and button-ups, people who knew what a 1952 deer meant, what it took to restore one. Marcus met us at the steps. You made a statement. That was the point. Linda's Mercedes was already in the parking lot. So was Margaret's Lexus. The Carmichael family in force, probably thinking their lawyer and their money would make this go away like everything else. Inside, the courtroom smelled like old wood and floor polish. High ceilings, tall windows letting in sunlight. Judge Henrietta Morrison's bench sat elevated at the front, empty for now. The gallery was filling up. Vernon, Evelyn, Pastor Mike, Ruby, Phil Davidson looking sober and terrified. And on the other side, Linda with her gray-haired lawyer, Margaret, and half a dozen Carmichael family members in their country club best. Linda looked across the aisle at me. I looked back. 40 years of marriage, and I barely recognized her. Judge Morrison came in at 10 sharp. Everyone stood. She was 60-something, black woman with silver hair and reading glasses on a chain, reputation for no-nonsense fairness that had half the county either loving her or scared of her. Be seated. Case number 2025 CV 847, Hendricks versus Hendricks, emergency motion regarding fraud allegations and asset preservation. She looked over her glasses at both tables. This is unusual. We're 3 days from the statute of limitations expiring on alleged fraud from 2019. Mr. Chin, you filed this motion. Make it quick and make it good. Marcus stood. Your Honor, we have evidence that Mrs. Linda Hendricks committed multiple acts of fraud between 2019 and 2020, including document forgery, insurance fraud totaling $80,000, and systematic theft of property belonging to Mr. Dale Hendricks and the estate of Dorothy May Hendricks, deceased. Linda's lawyer, his name was Preston Hall, no relation to the groom, stood up. Your Honor, these are baseless allegations made by a bitter ex-husband. The statute of limitations expires in 3 days. This is a desperate last-minute attempt. I'll decide what's desperate, Mr. Hall. Sit down. Judge Morrison looked at Marcus. You have witnesses? Yes, Your Honor. 4 witnesses, plus documentary evidence. Call your first. Evelyn rolled up to the witness stand. They had to adjust the microphone down for her wheelchair, but when she spoke, her voice was clear and sharp. She'd been doing this kind of thing for 40 years. Marcus walked her through it. The original deed from 2018, properly filed, properly notarized. The amended deed from 2019, filed 3 months after my mother died, notarized by a woman who'd been retired for 2 years. And you kept carbon copies of both documents? I kept carbon copies of every document I personally processed in 40 years. Evelyn looked at the judge. That's how I know the second deed is fraudulent, the signatures don't match pressure patterns, and the notary stamp is from someone who couldn't have notarized anything. Linda's lawyer cross-examined, tried to suggest Evelyn was mistaken, that maybe the dates were confused. Evelyn didn't budge. 40 years of county records, and she remembered every detail. Next witness, Judge Morrison said. Phil Davidson took the stand. His hands shook, but his voice was steady. I processed an insurance claim in 2020 for Mrs. Hendricks. Farm equipment allegedly destroyed in a barn fire. Total payout, $80,000. Did you verify the loss? No, ma'am. Mrs. Hendricks provided photographs and a written statement. I trusted her word because I knew her family. Did you inspect the scene? No, ma'am. Marcus pulled up photos on a screen, the burned building from Linda's claim, then the actual barn on the Carmichael property. Vernon had been right. Different buildings entirely, wrong construction, wrong foundation, wrong everything. I saw the equipment last month, Phil said, still in her sister's barn, same serial numbers from the claim, the 1940s combine, the baler, the John Deere tractor. He looked at Linda. I'm sorry, Your Honor. I should have done my job. I helped her commit fraud. Preston Hall objected, called it hearsay, called it unreliable. Judge Morrison overruled. He's testifying to his own actions. That's not hearsay. Continue. Vernon went next, testified about the metal box, about Mom's real will, about the carbon copy Linda didn't know existed, showed the inventory list with serial numbers that matched Phil's claim exactly. Then Pastor Mike testified about Linda telling the church board their equipment was covered under our family policy, about how she'd lied, cost the church 2 years of coverage, all to establish a pattern that would support her fraud. Did you verify this with Mr. Hendricks? No, sir. I trusted Mrs. Hendricks. She was a respected member of our community. Marcus entered the documents into evidence. Every page, every signature, every serial number. The pile on the clerk's desk grew thick. Judge Morrison looked at Linda. Mrs. Hendricks, do you wish to testify? Preston Hall whispered something to her. She shook her head. Mrs. Hendricks, I'm asking you directly. Did you file an insurance claim in 2020 for farm equipment you knew was not destroyed? Linda looked at her lawyer, looked at her sister, looked at me. For just a second I saw something, fear, maybe, or shame, then it was gone. Your Honor, I wish to invoke my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. The courtroom went silent. Even the people in the gallery stopped shifting in their seats. Judge Morrison took off her glasses. You understand that invoking the Fifth in a civil case allows me to draw negative inferences? Yes, Your Honor. Very well. She looked at Marcus. Anything else? Just this, Your Honor. He held up a photo, the tractor sitting outside on the courthouse lawn. That's the 1952 John Deere from the insurance claim, serial number JD8847. Mr. Hendricks restored it himself over the past 4 months. That tractor was supposed to be destroyed in a fire. Instead, it's parked on your lawn, running perfectly, because it was never destroyed. Because Mrs. Hendricks lied. Judge Morrison studied the photo, studied the documents, looked at Linda for a long moment. I'm ruling from the bench. The evidence is overwhelming. Mrs. Linda Hendricks committed fraud in the execution of a deed in 2019, resulting in the theft of property rightfully belonging to Mr. Dale Hendricks. Additionally, she filed a fraudulent insurance claim in 2020, collecting $80,000 for property that was never destroyed. The statute of limitations is told due to active concealment of the fraud. She signed something, handed it to the clerk. The estate will be divided 50-50 as originally intended. Mrs. Hendricks will return all insurance proceeds plus interest. And I'm referring this case to the county prosecutor for criminal investigation. Wire fraud, insurance fraud, forgery. That's outside my jurisdiction, but Mr. Chen, you'll want to contact the district attorney's office. Preston Hall was on his feet. Your Honor, we're done, Mr. Hall. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. I walked out into the sunlight. The tractor was still there, engine ticking as it cooled. Vernon put his hand on my shoulder. Evelyn wheeled up beside us. Ruby was crying. Happy tears, she said, but I wasn't sure any of this felt happy yet. Inside, could hear shouting. Then the side door opened and Linda came out, not in handcuffs yet, but flanked by 2 deputies. The prosecutor must have been waiting. Margaret followed, her face white. Linda looked at me one more time across the courthouse lawn. 40 years, and this was how it ended. Not with love or forgiveness, but with deputies and criminal charges and a judge's gavel. The deputies led her to a squad car. Processing, they called it. She'd make bail probably, but the charges were real now. Federal charges, 3 to 5 years if convicted. Vernon squeezed my shoulder. Let's go home. I climbed up on that tractor, turned the key. The engine started like it had been waiting 70 years for this moment. I drove it back through town, past Ruby's Diner where people stood outside watching, past the hardware store, and the church, and all the places I'd lived my whole life. Drove it home to the shop, where the work was honest and the ground was solid, and spring had finally arrived. Linda took a plea deal 3 days later. The prosecutor laid out the evidence, the forged deed, the insurance fraud, Phil's testimony, the equipment sitting in Margaret's barn, and her lawyer knew they couldn't win. 3 years probation, full restitution of the $80,000 plus interest, community service, and her real estate license revoked. No prison time, but everything else gone. Margaret had to sell the estate to cover her half of the restitution. Turned out she'd known about the fraud all along, helped hide the equipment, hosted that wedding on stolen property. The bank came calling on her loans. The house went up for auction May 20th. Vernon went for me. I couldn't stomach watching it happen. He came back that evening with a truck bed full of equipment, the combine, the baler, tools in their original cases. Margaret's lawyer had sold them cheap just to clear inventory fast. Got your grandfather's combine for $200, Vernon said, grinning. Margaret didn't even know what it was, thought it was junk. We unloaded everything into the shop. Each piece was a piece of my family coming home. The legal bills got paid by the community. Ruby organized a fundraiser breakfast, packed the diner wall to wall, raised $12,000 in 4 hours. Farmers I hadn't talked to in months showed up with checks. You fought for what's right, they said. That matters. Pastor Mike held a dinner at the church, called it a justice celebration, though it felt more like a funeral for my marriage than a party. But people came, shook my hand, said they were sorry for doubting me. The Carmichael family stopped coming to church. Found a different congregation where nobody knew what they'd done. Late May, the soil was finally warm enough for planting. I'd bought back my half of the property at auction, 100 acres. The fields my grandfather cleared, my mother tended, my father plowed. It was mine now, really mine. Legally, finally mine. Vernon and I started early, sunrise still pink on the horizon. The 1952 Deere ran smooth, pulling the planter like it remembered this work from 7 decades ago. The smell of turned earth was the best thing I'd breathed in months. Rich and dark and full of possibility. Apple blossoms covered the old trees along the fence line, the ones my grandfather planted when he bought this land in 1947. Every spring they bloomed, regardless of who claimed to own the ground beneath them. Vernon rode beside me on his own tractor, a newer one but still good. We didn't talk much, didn't need to, just worked the way men in our family always had. Straight rows, good seed, honest labor. At lunch we sat under those apple trees eating sandwiches Ruby had packed. The sun was warm, the breeze smelled like growing things. You regret it? Vernon asked. Fighting this hard? I looked at the field, half planted, rows stretching toward the horizon. My mother's field, my grandfather's field, mine now because I'd stood up when it mattered. No, I said. Some things are worth the cost. The tractor engine ticked as it cooled. Birds sang in the branches above us. Somewhere a neighbor's dog was barking, kids laughing in a yard down the road. 40 years of marriage, gone. 40 years of believing I knew someone, wasted. But this land under my boots, this tractor running like my father had just parked it, this work in my hands, this was real. This was true. We better finish planting, Vernon said. Weather's turning tonight. We climbed back on the tractors. The engine started easy. We worked until sunset, and when the last row was planted, I sat there on that 1952 Deere and just breathed. Spring had come. The field was planted. The work was honest. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. 3 years on now, I'm 70 years old. Sitting on the shop porch in the evening light, watching Vernon's grandson learn to drive that 1952 Deere across the south field. The boy's 12, same age I was when my father taught me. The engine sounds just like it did back then. Good and steady and true. People ask if I miss Linda. Honest answer? I miss who I thought she was. 40 years with someone, you build a life. But if that life's built on lies, it's just a stage set. Pretty to look at, hollow underneath. Vernon and I run the farm now. Split the work, split the profit. Simple. We planted corn this year, soybeans last year. The soil remembers what it's supposed to do, even after all the trouble. Town healed slower than the fields did. Some folks still think I was cruel, taking Linda to court, but most have come around. They've seen her at the grocery store, seen how she won't meet anyone's eyes anymore. They've seen me still here, still working, still honest. Here's what I learned. Justice ain't cruel. Silence is. My mother scraped that farm together acre by acre. She trusted me to keep it. I almost let a forged signature take it away because I was too tired to fight, too trusting to question. But that tractor engine firing up after all those years, that sound told me something. What's broken can be fixed, what's stolen can be returned, what's true will surface given time. The apple trees are blooming again. Second spring since the trial. The blossoms smell like hope, if hope had a smell. Vernon's making coffee inside. His grandson's learning to turn the tractor at the row's end, gentle on the clutch like we taught him. That pillar at the wedding, it was meant to hide me. Instead, it put me exactly where I needed to be, right next to the one person who'd tell me the truth. Sometimes the worst seat in the house turns out to be the best place to start over.